right, good morning, everyone. My name is Amaan Mangalji, as Tariq just mentioned. Today I'm going to be talking to you about happiness. So over the years, I've had the pleasure of traveling throughout the world with my wonderful parents. I've gone to Africa, I've gone to India, and one thing that I've really noticed while I was there is that people there had vibrant smiles. They were connecting, even though they lived in some of the most terrible conditions. They communicated, and that led to a personal satisfaction. And why is that? Because they're in tune with each other. They're connected to each other. They're connected to themselves. They're connected to the world that they come from. They're connected to the earth that sustains them. In the Western world, I find that we have so much, but yet we suffer from vast amounts of depression. But there they have so little, but they are truly alive. Smiles radiate, energy courses through their bodies, and they live free because they're in tune with themselves. They're in tune with each other, and they're healthy because of that. So why did this stand out to me? Over the years, I've had my share of feeling down or not sure what I'm doing. But I cannot identify why I feel these ways. And that is what bothers me. Because I have so much going for me. I have so much that I can do. I have so many privileges. But yet I go through these periods where you don't feel great. But the people overseas in Africa and India, the people who have hundreds of reasons to get down and depressed and unmotivated, these are the people who you see smiling and communicating and helping and being selfless. And the reason that that is because they understand who they are. That is why I feel like culture and just the lifestyle comes to affect your happiness. And that's what allowed me to notice it. So, like I just said, happiness depends on culture, connections, and lifestyle. I believe it because I've experienced it. I've lived in the Western world almost my entire life, or actually my entire life. And we've got great things going for us, as I just said. But our culture tells us that once we get out into the real world, there's nobody that's going to look out for you. And that makes us selfish, self-centered, and that causes us to be unhappy. Places like Africa and India, they have a willingness to help, to go out of their way, to give back to people, to spread happiness, to smile. And that allows them to be happy because their culture is different. Our culture suppresses our basic human instinct to express ourselves, to go to others, to let ourselves be happy by spreading happiness. To me, happiness is to reach your full human potential, but to always be grateful. For me, your human potential is getting to a point where you understand who you are, where you came from, why you're here, and how you can satisfy your happiness. Many of you have heard, to give is to get. To give happiness is to receive happiness in turn. If you surround yourself with happiness and you radiate happiness to those who surround you, you will be consumed by the happiness that is around you. Again, you must be grateful. In the Western world, we have so much to be grateful for, yet we take so much for granted. We don't appreciate the things that we should appreciate, like just being simply alive. We've all heard money doesn't make you happy, yet that's all we chase. We chase money or fame, material wealth. We do not find the time in our lives to appreciate being alive. Our culture has pushed away that gratefulness. Whereas in places like Africa and India, gratefulness is all they have. They're grateful for what they have, whether it be a little bit or a lot, and that allows them to be happy. To be happy is to be grateful. You cannot be happy without being grateful for what you have, whether it be small or big. What is the cause of gratefulness or selflessness? So there's an assumption that the developed world is at a better standing in terms of happiness than the developing world. But as you guys may have guessed, I think that is false. The standard of living does not equal happiness. Happiness is much more than material wealth. There is this 13th century king named Mansa Musa. He had all the material wealth in the world, piles and piles of gold surrounding him, but yet he was not satisfied because he understood that to attain his happiness would be to give his wealth to others. He spread his wealth into the hands of individuals who would inspire change and generosity and gratitude. He met many people, he grew his empire, he built institutions to trade knowledge and learning. He could have just laid on his riches and he would have been fine. He would have had a great life. But he chose to give away his wealth so that everyone around him could be happy because he understood that to give happiness, to give goodwill, is to get it back to yourself. The gold is what you can do. Gold is what you can do with that gold, so share what you can. If you share what you can, you will get happiness back because by sharing, you're receiving. There's a documentary called Happy by Rocco Bellic. He's a man who's traveled over vast distances and seen many cultures. And he's used scientific research and stories to argue that once you have your basic needs met, economic factors do not make that much of a difference. Although there is no formula or procedure for happiness, I believe that everybody here can become happy or happier. Ibn Battuta was someone who was born to privilege. He gave up everything. He gave up his home, he gave up his wealth. And why did he do that? He did that because he loved learning about cultures. He took chances to learn whenever he could. During his travels, he was shipwrecked and lost whatever little he had left. But he was saved by the kindness of strangers. And for this, he was very appreciative. Ibn Battuta gave up everything to live his version of happiness, which was imparting knowledge, encountering different people, and absorbing different cultures. Now my parents. My parents were born in Africa. And throughout my childhood, I've grown up hearing stories about how they would just go outside, maybe barefoot, and pick up a stick or meet some kid next door, and they would just play for hours and be completely happy. And then here, we have PlayStations and tablets and phones before we're out of elementary school. I'm guilty of that, and I'm sure everyone else is too. But when we went back to Africa, when I went back to Africa with my parents, I noticed the inner child come out of them again. Their attitudes changed because the culture changed. They went back to their roots. They began to be carefree and live in the moment and have fun and connect with all those around them, and that rubbed off on me because while I was in Africa, I experienced conversations and communication with people who I had never met before, but I still remember to this day. David Stendhal Roast has a quote, "All of us want to be happy. In this, we are all together. How we imagine our happiness, that differs from one another, but it's already a lot that we have all in common." I believe that there are different paths to happiness, but you will not reach your happiness without the help of others. You learn from each other and you connect and you develop, and through that you launch yourself on the path to your happiness. If people share their happiness and link themselves to each other, that is another way to launch yourself onto your path to happiness. But for each connection not made is an addition as a roadblock in your path to happiness. In the Western culture, because of us being told that nobody is going to look out for us, we've encountered many roadblocks. We miss out on so many connections that are around us. In Africa and India, connections is what they really value. Connections give them the will to go on, they keep them strong, and essentially it makes them happy. Relationships also impact your happiness. I have a couple stories now. While I was in India, I had a driver who was not at all wealthy, but he remembered my birthday while I was really young. And although there's a lot of people who will remember my birthday, this one really stood out for me because he didn't have to do any of this. He gave me a box of small sweets, and just that was a connection that I remember to this day. And the smile that I had on my face was amplified on his. By doing something for me, he received his happiness back. And for that, I'm really appreciative because that taught me that to give happiness is to receive happiness. Another story from Africa, when I was on a safari. On the right is our driver. His name was Jackson. He connected with us on a personal level, really meaningful level, when he did not have to. And over a couple of days when we were on these safaris, we really got to know him and had experiences with him. And then when we left, when we each parted ways, there was tears. There was tears in our eyes because the connections that we made were so meaningful, even though it was just over a few days. And sadly, that is an ability that is foreign to us these days. Like, we are not able to make these connections. It's really rare here. But over there, that is what they value. That is what they do. Emotional connections and personal connections lead to more meaningful forms of satisfaction. Here we appreciate connections, don't get me wrong on that, but most of our connections come through our handheld devices. We fail to realize that the fewer face-to-face connections with nature, with people around us, with our earth, those are the things that satisfy us. Those are the things that will make us happy. We forget our roots. We forget our earth, our culture, our human connections. And as His Highness the Aga Khan said, learn to desire the thing that happens and not try to mold events to your desires. And what this means to me is appreciate the path that you are on. Happiness is living in the moment to your highest potential. To not recognize this, to not pursue this, is to throw away happiness. Don't stray from yourself. Become in tune with those around you. Get to know yourself. Get to know your roots. Get to know your earth. Get to know what keeps you alive. To be happy is to have people around you that make you happy simply by them being happy. To be happy is to ground yourself and understand that you are blessed just to be alive, not blessed to have an amount of money or a great job. You are blessed to just be alive. It is your job to unlock your happiness, to unlock the door to your happiness, and take as many people through that door as you can. Because once you do that, the happiness will come back to you and fill you and finally make you happy. Thank you.